In February 2019, 4 Pakistani F-16 fighter jets suddenly crossed the India-Pakistan border, preparing to launch an airstrike on the Indian military base in Rajouri. However, when the Indian base detected them through radar, it was found that the number of aircraft that had crossed the border was not just 4. Seeing the situation was not right, the commander-in-chief of the Indian Army immediately ordered the urgent dispatch of 12 Su-30 fighter jets from the Utranpur base to intercept, and at the same time, all air forces were put on the highest level of combat readiness. However, just as the Indian Air Force's planes had just taken off from the base, the 106 fighter jets of the 8th Army had already reached the airspace above the Rajouri base. Seeing this, the commander-in-chief promptly ordered the activation of the anti-aircraft missiles. Several surface-to-air missiles from the Indian side were closing in on the Pakistani aircraft. Seeing this, the Pakistani side quickly responded by releasing heat decoys and successfully evaded the surface-to-air missiles. Immediately after, they launched several air-to-ground missiles at the Indian base. In an instant, the entire base was engulfed in flames. However, at this moment, the 12 Su-30s of the Indian side finally arrived at the battlefield. Seeing the situation was not right, the 8 immediately ordered to fly out of the borderline. What the Indian side never expected was that while the Su-30s were pursuing the F-16s in the air, the Indian military command suddenly discovered that 2 F-16s were heading towards another military base. The commander-in-chief immediately ordered 2 Su-30s to intercept them, while the rest continued to chase the fleeing F-16s. But their move was still a step too late. At this moment, 2 F-16s have reached the target area. Immediately, they fired 4 missiles, despite the Indian side's anti-aircraft guns. In an instant, the entire base was flattened. At this moment, the Su-30s had already surrounded and were pressing hard on the F-16s from behind. However, the distance to the India-Pakistan border was now less than 15 kilometers. The Supreme Commander ordered an immediate retreat, but this order was directly blocked by the Pakistani side's jamming radar. Just then, the 2 F-16s suddenly split up. Seeing this, the Su-30s could only chase them separately and simultaneously fire air-to-air missiles at the F-16s for interception, but it was of no practical use at all. At this moment, they still had no idea that they had fallen into the enemy's trap.